Family, how is everybody today? That number is not right anymore. There we go. Only two left. Outstanding. How's everybody doing today? Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. I think what's going to end up happening is I'm going to go Monday through Friday. So you're not going to see me Saturdays and Sundays anymore. But we're going to do Monday through Friday. And I think we're adjusting to like a show format. So this is going to be one of the last question and answer formats. So it's just going to be a set show. We're going to do what we're going to do, and then it'll be posted on the socials. So all the socials will get it. I think I want to say Instagram, Facebook, which we're not live on either of those today, but Instagram, Facebook, Fanbase, TikTok, and YouTube will all get it. We don't really do Twitter, so you won't see us there. All right. We have two end of year specials left. The end of year special includes everything, so it's a way to just relocate and not have to worry about much. So it includes a house, it includes land, it includes your immigration status, it includes all your legalities, including your tax status, but most importantly, it includes a bond ladder, which will pay you out passive income, which can cover your monthly expenses to the point where you won't have to work for the next 10 years, right? So 10 years worth of passive income being paid out via bonds is part of that special end of year special, and it's all managed by your trust. So a trust is also included in that. So there are only two spots left in that because there are only two pieces of land left. All right, so when the land runs out, that special essentially runs out. Okay, right. Let me go to my inbox. I woke up a little bit late here today, so I got on here about 30 minutes late than I normally do. Um, and like woke up, got ready, and came straight on out. So normally I check my inbox and go through all that stuff and figure out if there's anything I need to get into today, which is something that I haven't done. So let me see if there's any bunch of emails from over the weekend. It's odd, you guys do ask things in waves. So it's like a question will come in and then like 10 of the same or a similar question. So I don't know if it's like social media driving it or something that everybody's seeing or everybody's watching the same movie or TV show and then they come asking questions. It is odd how you guys ask questions in waves like that. So let me see. Do I have anything popping up here? Business, business, business. Da, 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 da. What else? Oh, that's a personal email. Here we go. Business. What's going on? Oh no, pretty much standard. How do I go to Africa? How do I make money in Africa? Can I get a job in Africa? Yeah, pretty much standard stuff. So most folks don't want to get a job here, right? Most folks either want to own a business here or they want to, use the bond ladder and not have to work again and just have passive income here for the rest of their life, right? So that's typically the way that most people approach it. You don't want to get a job here because typically if you get a job here, then you're getting paid what locals get paid, and that's a little less sustainable than either having a business and setting whatever you're going to be paid by yourself, or having the bond ladder, right? So the folks that have the money, they have the 401k, they have the resources, the HELOC, the whatever. They typically like to just get a bond ladder that's going to fit their lifestyle, and then live off of that bond ladder for X amount years, right? And get it together in those X amount of years is typically what they do, right? So within those years that they're living off of the bond or the bonds, a bond ladder consists of 6 bonds. So for the years that they don't have to work and they just got money pouring in every month, then they figure other things out. Typically, it's other investments. So typically, they'll get to a point where it evens out as far as what it is that they're. Oh, thank you so much. Let me take it this way. And then no, I'll take that. I'll take that as well. I just wanted to go one at a time. Thank you. All right. So yeah, and then when it evens out, and they're not spending all of the money every month, then they start making investments in additional things, right? What kind of things? Let me show you. I'm happy you asked that. Let me show you. Here we go. Is it not on here? Let me send the image over. Oh, it was over here. Okay, let me send the image over. Things like this. Mm-hmm. There we go. Okay. Huh. Okay, I thought I sent the image over. Let me take a look. What are you doing? Huh. I guess I didn't send it over. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, stuff like that. Good question. So this is the type of stuff that our clients end up investing in after the bond ladder. Okay, after the bond ladder. I don't think you're going to see it. Yeah, it's pretty rough to see for you guys, YouTube. But what it is a list of different asset classes that you can get into after the fact. So what ends up happening is the bond, it gives you a kind of guaranteed monthly income, right? So then you don't have to worry about money anymore, and it completely changes how you see the world. I wish that for every last one of you guys, right? Something I couldn't even imagine in the United States, or maybe all I did was imagine it in the United States. But couldn't see any kind of way for it to actually come true or happen or anything like that. And then got out of here, and instantaneously it was reality, right? So that's what the bond ladder does. It instantaneously gives you these really, really solid, like averaged out to be like 14, 13 and a half, 15% returns, right? And then you can actually see their own mutual. That's the same annualized returns that they're showing there. I don't think you can see it on the YouTube one. There you go. Right. That one closer to the bottom for you guys on YouTube is that old mutual where it says 13 to 15%. And then on top of that, where it says conservative, it says conservative bonds. That's their strategy. There's Oak Special Fund right above it. They have that aggressive strategy. They're 29 to 30% returns. Now, these are gross returns. In your pocket, Oak Special Fund is like 20%, which is still amazing. It's still double the S&P 500. You see Kuza up there with a 45% return, ROI. So these are the things that people get into after the fact. So yes, they may only have 10 to 20 years of bond money to live off of, right? I say only, that's crazy. But like I said, it changes the way you see things once you don't have to worry about money anymore. So they might only have 10 to 20 years of bond money before the bonds are up, but they will get to a point where they've bought everything they want to buy and they've set up their house every way they want to set it up. And so now they're not spending all the bond money every month. And then when they stop spending all the bond money every month, then they have the opportunity to start investing in these types of asset classes and getting these types of returns, hopefully, as long as the fund keeps operating in a similar fashion. Past performance is not an indicator of future performance. So, unfortunately, even though these bonds have had really great years this last year, you have no idea what they're going to do next year. Now, the bonds don't matter. The bonds are locked in for their time frame. So, for the 10 years, 20 years that the bonds are active, their percentage of ROI is locked in by the government. That's why they're such a beautiful deal. All right. It's these special funds. These special funds are investing in other asset classes. So some of it might be real estate, some of it might be mutual funds, some of it might be ITFs, some of it might be commodities, some of it might be options, you know, things of that nature. So these other funds are professionally managed investment funds that are investing in all sorts of things and typically a mix of all sorts of things. And that's how they preserve capital. So they have a capital preservation strategy. The most popular one is to use diversification for capital preservation, right? So they'll typically be invested in a mix of different things and diversified out, and then that protects them. So when one thing goes down, the idea is that hopefully something else goes up, and you maintain kind of like your return portfolio. A lot of them will have performance bonuses. So performance bonuses can be great because they I guess not, they don't force, but they what is it, incentivize, they incentivize the fund manager to get you the most money that they possibly can, because like they can get to like a good return, and if there's no incentive and like that return is, you know, paying their bills, you know, kind of as a whole, right, as a fund, they could just take their foot off the gas, right? Right? If there's no incentive for them to get more, like let's say they get you a 20% return, double the S&P 500, right? Okay, great. Like we got you this amazing return. You can't be mad at us for giving you this amazing return. We're there. We can kind of relax now, right? Like whatever. If we lose a couple points by the end of the year, so what? You still get 16%. That's still great, right? Screw it. We'll just take our foot off the gas, right? And so if there's an incentivization of like, hey, wait a minute, for every percentage point above 15%, you know, you're going to get an extra, you know, percent in profit to yourself or whatever, right? Or you're going to get an extra point, you know, to yourself. Then they're going to keep their foot on the gas. They're going to try to go from 20 to 30, from 30 to, you know, to 40. But they're also going to be careful about it, because if they fall underneath the threshold, even though they've been above the threshold for most of the year, then they're not going to get that like end of year bonus, you know, that they made it above this threshold, and was able to take advantage of that higher amount of pay, right? So those are the ways that you incentivize the fund to work harder for you. Now you can't force that incentive unless you have a family office. Then you can incentivize your own family office your own way. And these funds like Kuza Momentum Fund, Mansa X Special Fund, Oak Special Fund, Old Mutual, Ithaca Wealth Fund, these funds operate the way a family office could operate. It's just that they're public, essentially. They're open to whoever wants to buy into them, versus a group of people like this, or depending on the size of the family, maybe even just one or two people, but a professional working specifically on behalf of your family, right? That comes into play a lot with generational wealth trust funds, which you will have as part of the end of year special. If you're an end of year special client, that trust fund comes with it. It's part of it, right? Um, so eventually, as the trust fund grows, you could get to a point where you need a family office to manage it all for you, and that should be set up within the trust, right? Would the trust own the family office? Yes, the trust would own the family office either directly or indirectly. But yes, it would. For some people who are super, super focused on protection, everything is indirectly owned by the trust. For other people, like for people where the trust deed clearly states that the family office has to be run by family members, because there are some trust deeds that state that, which that's a little rocky because you could get to a generation where nobody chooses finance, and then what are you going to do, right? But some people do set up their trust deed that way, and if it's like that, then it can kind of directly be owned by the trust, even though there's still a tad bit of danger in there. Some people are okay with it. What kind of danger are you talking about? I think that's talking about. I think it's just a misspelling on talking, right? Yes. Okay. The kind of danger that I'm talking about is essentially litigation. That's the kind of danger that exists there. So, all right. For example, let's say the trust directly owns the family office, which is an actual place to work, right? It's like a Wall Street brokerage, right? But that only works for you. Okay, you're the only client for this brokerage, right? That's what a family office is in essence. Okay, so somebody's coming to work and punching a clock every day. Yes, it could be remote, blah 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 blah, but essentially someone is coming to work and making investments for the benefit of your family every day. That's their job, right? So there's still just your standard like work stuff. There's still workman's comp. There's still like, I went to the bathroom on my lunch break and slipped and fall and broke my leg. Now you owe me the medical bills, right? There's just that stuff still, right? Or any kind of like weird workplace stuff where like, all right, I'm gonna sue you now because you violated something at the workplace or you didn't pay me my overtime or like whatever. There's regular workplace nonsense, right? So now, you know, who does that go up against? That goes up against the owner, of the company, right? That's the top of that legality chain. So who's the owner? If it's the trust directly, then there's a little bit of danger there, okay, right? Now, if the trust owns a company and that company owns the wealth fund or the family office, so the trust owns it indirectly, then that's one more, layer of padding. That tends to happen more when the trust is like really rich. Okay, when it's going to be really, really hard to replace that trust. All right, that's typically when that happens. Yeah, except what happens when you're. Oh, I'm sorry for the other live stream. They were saying if your family office is family members or somebody then that's not really that big of a risk. And I agree with that. However, um, companies are also liable for whatever their equipment does, right? And so, let's say you're if you have a family office, it doesn't just invest in the stock market. Typically, it also invests in other companies, right? As either venture capital or private equity, right? So, let's say you're driving to a meeting and your guy gets into a car accident. If the car accident was his fault, is it now the company's fault? Yep, right? And so, if a lawsuit emerges and um, the insurance doesn't cover it all, then who has to pay the rest? The owner. Who's the owner? Is it the trust? Do they work directly for the trust? Because now that little car accident just opened up your entire trust to whoever sued, right? Millions of dollars now on the line that are supposed to be for your kids now get to go to this person who sued because the idiot who was in charge of the family office got in a car accident and it was his fault, right? Had nothing to do with you at all. You couldn't avoid it at all, right? It's all on him, right? So that also is why somebody wouldn't hire directly from the trust and maybe set up, the equivalent of what we call an LLC in the U.S. and then have the LLC, own the family office. So there are those things as well. Yeah, you can't think of everything. That's what the professional's for. There are things that you're just not going to think of because they haven't happened in front of you before, and that's exactly what your professional is for. And that's why your professional has to be a balance of education and experience. Because you can go hire the kid who just graduated from Harvard Law. That's great, but he's never done this before. Right? So even though he has the education, he doesn't have the experience. He might be educated enough to be able to fill out all the paperwork textbook perfectly. But he has never been in a situation where someone finds out that their kids were swapped at birth and one of the kids is already named in the trust as the beneficiary. However, they're not related to you at all. And you just found the real heir and the real beneficiary because they got sick and needed a blood transfusion and the blood didn't match either parent. And then they did a DNA test and the DNA didn't match either parent. Now what do you do? How do you fix that in the trust? He doesn't know because he doesn't have the experience. He hasn't been doing it long enough that one of these weird, crazy situations popped up that he had to deal with in the past, right? So the difference between a professional and a specialist is experience. That's the difference. So I always say your minimum level of engagement is to acquire a professional, right? Your high-end level of engagement is to call a specialist, right? Specialists are going to talk to you a little different. Specialists are going to deal with you a little bit differently. Specialists are going to diagnose what's wrong with you and make a prescription. Specialists are never going to be yes men. And some people, like their ego won't allow them to get the best out of the situation. They won't allow them to work with a specialist. There's a lot of people who are like that. And so that's completely up to them. That's okay. They're allowed to do that, right? It's okay. But the folks that are dealing with specialists are always going to have a better outcome because they're way better covered. Why would you pay somebody to not do what you tell them to do? Yeah, because they're a specialist, right? So if your head hurts and you go to a doctor and they say, hey, you actually need to see a brain specialist. And then you go see the brain specialist and you're like, hey, I got this ringing in my ear. I think you need to put some medicine in my ear. And then the brain specialist, should they just put medicine in your ear or should they run a test? You're paying them. Right? They work for you. You're paying them. What should they do what you tell them to do? No, they shouldn't. Exactly. They should run a test. And when they run the test and they find out that, there's a tumor and they need to do brain surgery, not put medicine in your ear, then you do what they tell you to do, even though you're paying them because they're a specialist, right? Right. So that's why. The same reason why you pay for college and then you do what the professor tells you to do. You can't tell the professor, I'm paying your salary, I'm in charge of you, the customer's always right, I'm the one paying, you do what I tell you to. No, you don't know what the professor knows. That's the purpose of you going there. If you already know, there's absolutely no purpose of you going to that college. There's something called opting out. You can just take the final exam and get the degree. You don't have to go to school. If you know it, you don't have to go through it. And then you can walk up to the school and be like, yeah, I'm paying you. I know all of this. Give me the final exam right now. I will opt out. You have to take every single final exam. Sometimes you even have to do the like the midterm stuff and actually do the homework. And you bring in everything all at once and it's pass fail. There's no grades. You don't get a GPA, but you can get the degree. Right? So if you already know it, there's no need for the specialist. Then just go ahead and do it. The only reason you go to a specialist is because you don't know what you're doing. That's it. If you know exactly what you're doing, but you just don't have time to do it, get a generalist. It'll actually probably benefit the generalist even more, right? Because the generalist might come out of it as specialist. But if you know what you're doing and you just don't have the time to do it, get a generalist and tell them what to do. And they'll do exactly what you tell them to do. They won't question anything at all. And it'll get done because you know what you're doing. Like, if that's really the situation you're in, don't even bother with someone like me. Like, don't even get a specialist because it's not necessary. But if you're looking to do something you've never done before, if you're looking to get a level of security and a level of coverage you've never had before, that's when you get a specialist. All right. That's when you get a specialist. And most specialists will tell you that. Like, most specialists are not interested in taking your money. Like, they don't care about, just cashing your check, right? If it's not going to be something that's fulfilling to them, number one, and that actually supports you, number two, they're typically not going to take it on. Yeah, well, it's the same thing. Like, have you ever heard of somebody say that the lawyer didn't take their case? Same deal. If the lawyer doesn't think you have a case, no matter how much you want to pay him, no matter how much money you got and all of that, he ain't gonna take your case. He's not gonna take your case. Same thing with doctors. It happens with doctors all the time. The more common one, you don't hear too much about doctors not taking cases because when a doctor doesn't take a case, they typically don't tell you because you typically don't pick your doctor. The hospital does, right? But where you find that in medicine, because those are the two specialists that we interact with the most, medical specialists and legal specialists. Where you find out in medicine is when you move to another place and you're calling around to get a doctor's office and they tell you on the phone, what? We're not taking new clients right now. We're not taking new patients right now, right? So specialists, you'll get that answer from a specialist. They don't care about your money, right? We're not, because what'll happen if we take you as a new patient right now? We won't have the capacity to give you the quality. That's what they're really saying, right? We have so many patients right now. We know exactly how many of them we can deal with per year and still give each and every one of them the quality level that we're comfortable giving. And so we've reached that number. And so we're not going to take more money just to take more money and then everybody has less quality because we don't have time to see the patients properly. We don't have time to diagnose them properly, so on and so forth, right? So that's what happens with a specialist. So, definitely do your best to get a specialist if you need one, but also understand that it might be difficult to find one. And sometimes you wait, right? Like, there are schools that have a waiting list. There are lawyers that have waiting lists. There are doctors for sure, especially cancer specialists and stuff like that, that have waiting lists, right? So sometimes it makes sense to just wait and get it done right. Other times you can do some of the lower level for stuff, right now, and just wait off on the higher level stuff. Yes, you can. There's a learning curve to that. But yes, you can legitimately learn how to do it yourself. Legitimately, right? Most DIYers are bullshitters, right? Most of them are hoping and praying. But you can legitimately learn how to do it yourself. That typically takes 10,000 hours, which for the average person is close to 10 years. So yes, you can spend 10 years and learn how to do it yourself. That's how everything actually used to be done, and not too long ago. Even medicine used to be that everybody found a master and apprenticed under them. And they apprenticed under them for about a decade, and then they were able to go and practice. That's how law used to work. That's how medicine used to work. That all of these things. That's how it used to work. That's how some trades still work. Like you end up being an apprentice plumber under a master plumber, or a journeyman plumber, and then you get a plumbing certification later. So yeah, you can do that. You can do that if you have the time and you have somebody who's going to teach you, or you do it the even longer way and you go teach yourself. That's what libraries are for. It's possible. I was a mix of both. I worked at a law firm, but I still had to teach myself a lot of the African law and the systems and all of that stuff. So it took me about 7.5 years, and I had formal pre-law education that allowed me to work at a law firm. Not everybody working at a law firm is a lawyer, right? So you have paralegals, you have legal investigators and stuff like that. You have legal secretaries and all of that stuff. So working at a law firm helped. Having a pre-law, education in criminal justice helped. And then I still needed 7 years of on the ground social capital. I needed to meet the right people and build the right networks. So that took the better part of 7 years. And the familiarity with the new laws. And then some laws even changed while I was learning, which that happens, and then you got to adjust. So, yeah. No, we don't have a brokerage. So for these additional investments that you see up here, this is just where a lot of our clients put their money after they get their bond money. So they get their bond money, and if they're living off their bond, they will get to a point where it like evens out, and they don't need the bond money that they're making every month. Like they won't need all of it. So then they typically already have an emergency fund, but we tell them to create a local emergency fund. So create another emergency fund, because typically the emergency fund that they came with is in whatever country they came from, right? So you do another emergency fund, essentially the same amount, local currency. So 6 months worth of whatever your new runway is, right? Or your new burn rate. So whatever you're spending a month, 6 months worth of that, put off to the side. So they do that first after the emergency fund is done, and it ends up being like, again, their secondary emergency fund. Then they can take that same amount of money that they were putting off to the side and start investing that in whatever it is they want to invest it in, which is typically these things. And then there's typically a mix, and that mix happens in their trustee, because remember they all have a trust fund typically to manage this. You can do it without a trust fund. It's up to you, but most people, they'll have a trust fund to manage it, especially if something happens to them. They know where everything is going, and that everything keeps compounding. And so that's how that works. Specialist. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting there's multiple live streams. The question was, how do you know what split to invest in? Specialist. The specialist is going to break down like what an aggressive one is versus a conservative one versus blah, 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 blah. So that'll all be broken down by the specialist. You have an example of one. So things like you could have it where it's like 50% bonds. That would be conservative right off the bat because you got so many treasury bonds, right? So like 50% bonds, and then you can say, okay, then I want 20% mutual funds, right? So now we're at 70%. So you can say I want another 20% in maybe I wouldn't put 20% in options, but maybe 20% in like ITFs, right? And then you can put that last 10% in real estate or something like that, right? So you would have that, but you want to make sure that it's alive and that it flows in such a way that if anything changes in the world, and you're gone by then, like after you're dead and the trust is still alive, that the trustee, for the benefit of your heirs and your beneficiaries, can adjust the ratios inside of there, right? So you can, like, for example, Chinese clients, they do less real estate because in China you never actually own your house. In China, everybody gets a leasehold for 70 years, right? So the house that you buy, right, that your family is raised in, you only have that property leaseholded to you for 70 years. I don't know if there's a renewal. I assume because 70 years is kind of low. Most leaseholds in most countries that even have leaseholds, they give you a 99-year leasehold. That's enough for everyone to die, right? So like now it's a new family that's buying out. In China, it's 70 years, which is not a long time. Like people are going to outlive that. So I hope there's a renewal process where you can renew it for another 70 years. But I don't know. But I know all of our Chinese clients, which we have a bunch, because we used to have an affiliate guy who was Chinese, and he would send us Chinese clients because we pay a 6% affiliate fee. So he paid his way through Harvard Medical with our affiliate fee, and so we got a bunch of Chinese clients, and so they do less. They do less. How do I sign? Oh, okay. They do less real estate because they only get that real estate for 70 years in China. So they do more real estate outside of China than they ever do inside China. So it just depends on like who you are and like what mix you want. We're solid on that. Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I get a lot of deliveries. My wife likes to shop. Where is it from? Amazon. Amazon. Yeah, just Amazon deliveries. Now the TikTok stream actually can't see it because the way the thing works, you guys are, it's like a green screen for you, so you can see me in front of it, and you can't even see it that well. The YouTube one sucks. The TikTok one, the one that you can see well, there are some TikTok green screens that you can't see well. The one that you can see well, it's in front of me. So they can like see a little bit beneath the picture and a little bit above the picture, but the picture's out front, which is why they can see it really, really well. Which is why when you come over to the TikTok side, you can see, this entire chart that's in the background of the YouTube side, which sucks. So YouTubers got to see the delivery somewhat through the green screen, but the TikTokers not so much. You're here a lot though, if you know that I get a lot of deliveries. Yes, yes, yeah, 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 yeah. We order more local than we do international because we got to pay, like we paid an import fee for those. Those are things that are not available on the local market. That's the only time we use Amazon. Just way more cost effective. Yeah, essentially we pay like a tariff essentially to get the Amazon stuff in. Yeah. Did I miss a comment? Why do I feel like I missed a comment over there? Let me see what we got here. Not right now. We get that a lot. Um, were you here when I was just talking about the 7 years it took to get everything situated? Right, right, right. And the social capital that it takes, right? So, we don't have a level of social capital that permeates our local market yet, right? What does that mean? That means that if I don't know, if Barack Obama decided to go to the Dominican Republic and open a business. He has enough social capital that he's going to make the right friends in the Dominican Republic really quickly, and be able to like do business properly, right? His social capital precedes him. His reputation almost precedes him, right? So he has huge social capital and he can like go anywhere and just start doing business. Our social capital is pretty regional, right? So could we possibly do something in Uganda? Probably, probably. Could we do Rwanda? Probably. Tanzania, probably. We wouldn't want to, but probably, because we have like, regional connections and all of that. But for us to like, oh, can you do Ghana? No, we don't know anybody in Ghana, and they don't know us. You know what I mean? We just don't have the connections out there to do anything like that. Can we do Sierra Leone? Maybe, because we've done a bunch of business for our clients in Sierra Leone, so we have some social capital built up there, to the point where like we sat down with the first lady and all of that. So we probably could get something going in Sierra Leone. But that's the whole thing. Is like, do you have enough social capital in that market to just break into it? Without that, then you need to build. You need to accelerate the building of social capital. You always need social capital, but you can accelerate it, the building of social capital, with economic capital, right? So you can throw a bunch of money into a place and accelerate your social capital that way, or sponsor something a couple times, and then enter it that way. So we're not really looking at it just yet, but we may expand into a couple other countries, but we're not really looking at it just yet. So for right now, we solely onboard in Kenya. Like I said, we've done business in Sierra Leone for a bunch of clients, but those clients onboarded in Kenya and then decided that they wanted to do some business or some aspect of their business in Sierra Leone. So for our clients, we do stuff for our clients, all over the place. Now, we do onboard asset protection clients in Mauritius and Seychelles and a couple other places as well. But those are like rare, ultra high net worth individuals, right? They got more than $10 million in assets that they want to protect. So beyond them, our average client, that's like, I don't know, 5% of our business. It's not a whole lot of people. Not a whole lot of people in the world, period, that have that. So it's not a whole lot of them that work with us. But so beyond that, we don't onboard anybody outside of Kenya. But once you're onboarded, we can take you anywhere. There's a thing called Know Your Customer. It's becoming an international standard. So it's essentially a Know Your Customer standard. So once you're onboarded, then we've hit that standard, and now we know exactly who you are. You know exactly who we are, and then we can go from there. Because that ends up being what happens if somebody is working for you or representing you in some kind of way, and you're doing business in a country where that's not where you're from, and then your representation isn't from where you're from, and they're not from the country that you're doing business in, then they'll typically like jump on the like know your client, know your customer, however you want to say it. I guess it depends on whether you're dealing with customers or clients, but know your people standard, and then it goes from there. Yeah, yeah, it's definitely fastly becoming an international standard. Even when we do like Hong Kong trusts, it's the exact same know your client standard. And mainland China is even like tougher, interestingly enough, because a lot of that stuff comes out of like Swift network stuff. So you would think like the countries that are kind of opposed to the Swift network would have a different standard just for the hell of it, like just to be like, we're not doing it the American way, we have our own way. But no, same standard, or the same standard plus some. You know what I mean? So interesting, very very interesting. what makes the Chinese. Okay, right. So, for example, if you're doing business somewhere, your company sent you there. Maybe they got you a business visa to go to this place and attend the meeting. Maybe they just sent you as a tourist. Both are kind of valid, right? Because typically a business visa is a tourist visa. A lot of people don't understand that. It's not a work permit. It's still a visa. The business visa is just like, oh well, I'm going for a business conference and then I'm going home, and so you know I'm going to talk about business or to have a meeting about business or even to teach about business temporarily, and then I'm going home, but I'm not going there to like make money. I'm not going there to whatever in that country, right? Or I might be going to sign a contract or something, but it's typically a tourist visa. And so if you're going there on business, if you're sent there on business, right, and you're doing X, Y, Z, let's say you need a bank account in order to get little things. Let's say you're going for 90 days, which is typically the max on a visa, on like a tourist visa for one stay. So let's say you're going there for the max to do this business on behalf of your company. It's not working. You're not going there to like physically do labor because that would typically be illegal, right? You're going there to engage in like contract negotiations. That's fine, right? Without a work permit, essentially, in most countries. I don't know any country where that's not fine without a work permit, and it's just a business visa. So there you are, you're negotiating a contract, okay? But you need like money to live on. So you would open up like a tourist bank account, which most countries have, like this little temporary bank account that will expire, and any money you have in it, they will take, right? In most tourist bank accounts, that's how they work. So they'll only stay open for 90 days to 6 months. And then at the end of that, whatever money is inside of them, they will take it and not give it back. That's how a tourist account works. Because you don't have like a social security number or the equivalent thereof in that country, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So you open this account so that you can feed yourself while you're there on behalf of this company negotiating this contract. And typically what can happen is your company will put money into that account, right? Hey, I gotta take these guys out to the golf course, throw some money in my account. I gotta go to the country club with them, throw some money in my account. I gotta just eat. I need a per diem. So there's a per diem of money put into your account, right? That's how this works, right? In China, that money would be blocked because it's coming from a business account. Right? So you would need like this business permutation and all this crazy stuff to get that money because it went from a business account to a personal account, which is standard operating. Like even when the Chinese do it, their employees don't open business accounts in America because they're negotiating a contract in America, right? It goes from a business account to a personal account. That's what it's supposed to do. But so that's what I mean by like it's more severe. Like it'll actually be stopped by like their central bank, and you'll need all this documentation and shit to get it through when it's a very standard operating procedure, globally, right? So that's what I mean by more severe. It's a pain in the ass dealing with that. So you'd almost have to go open a Chinese company, right, just to negotiate a contract. It's a mess. Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. There's certain places where, like for our clients, it's better for them to just do business in Hong Kong, you know, which I guess is a position that the Chinese can take because they have so much general business, and you'll notice that like Chinese specialists are in Hong Kong and Taiwan, and Chinese generalists are in mainland. Yeah, it depends. It depends. Hong Kong's a pretty good place for an offshore trust, depending on what you're doing. So depending on what you're doing, it's a pretty good place for an offshore trust. The products mostly. Yeah, if the source of your assets is a product company and you want to put that product company now offshore and have the trust own it, Hong Kong's pretty solid for that. especially if your product is litigious, or for some people, or for some reason, like people scam you a lot, um, with like chargeback scams and stuff like that. Then Hong Kong is good for you because Hong Kong won't let them. It just depends. Depends on what you're doing and what you want. All right. No, I mean you don't necessarily have to at all. You got the bond coming in. You're typically good for money for 10 years. If you don't invest beyond that, that's fine, as long as you have a way to take care of yourself, like in your old age. Now we have some people who really don't care because they have a terminal diagnosis, right? And we've seen like a lot more of that, I'd say, in the last 5 years, where people are like, look, I've been given 10 years to live, 6 months to 10 years. And it's one of those things where I'm just going to, fall over. Like we've seen people with these aneurysms, that are just going to pop one day. It doesn't inhibit anything they're doing, but it's inoperable. And one day it's just going to explode. And when it explodes, they're just going to fall over. And that's going to be the end of it. And they're given X amount of time until that happens. And that's that. And so, and I guess maybe there's like support groups or like they know each other, because we got one client like 4 or 5 years ago that we did a bond ladder for. So they get money for as long as, they live, and then everything's in the trust and it goes to, their kids after that, and all that stuff. We got it all set up for them. And then as soon as we did like one, we got like 4 or 5 more. So, people talk, that's how it works. So that's like a subclass now of the client that we deal with, is people who got a clock, but the clock isn't debilitating. It's not like they got Parkinson's and then they're eventually gonna, unalive, but they have no quality of life now. These are people who have, these situations where, yeah, it's going to take them out, but it's just going to end up being like a major stroke. Right? There was somebody, I'm trying to remember the name of these things. These things are also so, special. But essentially, it was like an ulcer in the heart, or in one of the arteries to the heart. So it was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and one day it was just going to give out. And when it gives out, that's just going to be the end of it. Like it's going to be like a massive coronary event, and that's going to be the end of it. So there's a timer, and that's it. And like even I remember we were like, oh, can't you get a transplant? They were like, no, because it's like the artery leading up to it. So even if you got a new heart, it wouldn't matter. The artery is going to give out eventually, and it's the entire artery, so you can't like stent it or whatever. So there's all these things. People are going through stuff we don't even know, right? So there's all these different reasons that people do stuff like this, and sometimes it is just like, all right, I'm going to expire. People like that can't really get life insurance, right? Because they got a clock, so their life insurance is absurdly expensive if they even tried it. So it's one of those things where it's like, all right, so I'm going to do this trust fund. It's going to compound. It's going to feed me until I die, and then after that, it's going to take care of my family forever, and all of that great stuff. So there's all kinds of reasons to do it, all kinds of ways to do it. But yeah. So for those folks, they essentially spend it all, living their best life, until they can't anymore, and then the trustee might then start investing in like these types of investments, like the ones that you see up on your screen. Yes, I took it down. Hold on, YouTube. I'll show it to you, but it just looks so much better on TikTok. So you can't really see it all that well. It's unfortunate. On TikTok, you can see the entire thing. If you don't live off of it at all, then you create what's called a DRIP. So it's a dividend reinvestment plan or program. And then you would decide what percentage of the bond money got invested into things like this. So you would just create a drip, and you would let the drip accelerate compounding. So that's what happens if you're just doing the trust. Then you would essentially put the trust on steroids, right? Which do I? Well, I have multiple, obviously. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not obvious, but I have multiple, right? So my son has his thing going on that nobody touches, and it has a drip, and it has a 100% drip. So the guaranteed income that comes off of the bond gets reinvested in this type of stuff up here. And then when he hits a certain age, he starts getting access to that. So he'll have like $3.8 million in his trust by the time he's old enough to do anything. That's just comes from proper planning, right? And then, there's hours. There's a separate one for my wife that has no drip, so she can spend everything and just go crazy with whatever comes in off of it. And then there's mine that might have a drip to take care of the family. And so for us, and for most people who get it, they have multiple ladders. It's not like they'll just get one ladder and stop. Especially right now in this country, because the ladders are so amazing. The interest rates on them are so amazing. We have a client that has one specifically for venture. So it kicks out, I think he has it set to kick out like 100,000 local currency a month. And then he does like 80,000 in venture a month off of that. And sometimes you don't find anybody. Like, it's not like, even though obviously there are people who will accept the check, they have to meet your criteria, right? You're the investor. So sometimes you don't find anybody for like 3-4 months. And so then you're in a situation where you can write a $250,000 local currency check instead, and go from there. So he does a bunch of like venture capital stuff based off of that. And then he's getting venture returns, right? So his equity in those things are paying back into the trust as well. Planning wins for sure, 100%.
There's a quote that I love by Austin Butler.
1 second here. Come on now. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right, I'm done with that. Yeah, so a bond ladder without a house, like a basic minimum bond ladder without a house, typically does not cover your expenses. So then you can't just live off of it. If you have to pay rent, you don't own your house here, then you typically are not. It won't cover your expenses. It might cover your rent, right, and then a little bit more, which is obviously helpful. But the only time that we can set people up on bond ladders and then like they live off the bond ladder is they have to buy a house. So there's an upfront investment there, but then they don't have to worry about anything for the next however many years. We always tell them to like take 10% and put it in like a maintenance fund, so that when a toilet breaks, or a window or a roof or whatever, they can replace those things. But as long as they own a house, then they can typically just live off of the bond ladder. So that's why people can buy bond ladder, and I mean, obviously it still helps, right? But people can buy bond ladders and be renting, and then like whatever, figure it out from there. But a lot of folks that don't have a house and want the bond ladder, they're using it for their generational wealth trust. So they're buying a bond ladder for their wealth trust, or they're buying a bond ladder for their business, and they use it as their business runway. So they'll open a business, they'll invest, X amount of dollars, and say, okay, cool, this is now my runway for the business, and the bond ladders will be paying out that bond income every month, and that covers like employee salaries. A lot of those businesses are like Airbnbs, so it covers like the toilet paper and the house cleaner and all of that stuff. So they don't get calls every month. Oh, a toilet broke. We need you to send money to fix it. We need new toilet paper. We need new tissues. We need new, napkins, which they call sabiats here. So we need new paper towels, whatever. We ran out of, the cleaning solution to mop the floors. We need a new mop. The toilet's clogged up. We need to call a plumber. Like all of that stuff just gets covered by the bond income that's coming in, and when nothing is happening, it's getting banked, essentially. So those are the two types of folks that typically will still go get a bond ladder, even if they're not buying a house up front. But if you own a house, and yet you can live off of the bond ladder. We have a lot of folks that just retire, because there's a lot of folks that are like, oh, well, I can't get a remote job, or my job doesn't work that way. I can't support myself. How do I live? And then the answer for them ends up being the bond ladder. So they can get the bond ladder and essentially retire. They don't have to work anymore. And an interesting thing happens when you're in a position where you don't need to give a F about money anymore. Is all those jobs that you couldn't get, and all that stuff at work that didn't work out for you, and you weren't allowed to do this, all of a sudden, when you don't give a damn about a paycheck anymore because your money is covered, all of a sudden everybody is so much more flexible, and they can allow you to work remotely all of a sudden, and they make all these exceptions for you all of a sudden. When they lose the leverage of the paycheck over you, it's amazing how much leverage you gain overnight, and how much all the things they said couldn't be done magically can happen for you now. And so if you're anything like me, it'll actually irritate you. Like the first time I got to the point where I didn't need money anymore, and then everybody was just giving me everything I needed to get. It's like people only give you shit you don't need. When you needed it to get somewhere in life, it was against the rules, against the policy. No, we can't do this, we can't do that. When you didn't need it anymore, everybody, oh, you can have it, just stay on. So it's a whole different world once money is not a factor anymore. So I wish that for all of you. I hope you can all experience what it's like to have a bond ladder that's just passively giving you all the money you need, to get by. Oh yeah, so we had a client that worked for a chocolate company. As a matter of fact, I don't think, yeah, I can say the name. They worked for a company named Godiva, right? So Godiva, a chocolate company, and they were like, hey, can I like work remotely? Because their job was the craziest thing in the world, right? They like made the boxes and like tied the ribbons, like the golden ribbons on the boxes, and like delivered it or whatever. And they were like, look, can I like, if I paid, the postage, obviously, can I just like make the boxes anywhere in the world and just like send you the box? And they were just like, no, right? Which doesn't even make any sense at all, right? It's already something they can do from home, but like, just because we can and we're your employer, I guess, they were just like, no, you can't do it, And so they reached into their Roth and did the bond ladder. And they did the bond ladder with the house and all that. So now they were like set. and they were kind of like, well, I gave you an option as far as like continuing to do this box work. You said no, but I actually don't need money anymore. So my passive income is enough. So I guess I quit. I don't know what to tell you. I gave you an option. You didn't want to take the option, so I'm going. All of a sudden, so many they actually paid half the shipping. There's so many concessions when she didn't need the money anymore. They actually paid half the shipping and all of that stuff. And she eventually was just like, I live at the beach. I don't need to do this anymore. So she walked away from it. But yeah, it's really, really interesting once you put yourself in a position to not need money anymore. And there are ways to do it like this that are out there. But typically you can't stay in your home jurisdiction under your home currency rates and do it. You got to go to a place where your currency is more powerful in order to just instantaneously freaking retire, right? Or else everybody in your neighborhood would be doing it. You got to move to another neighborhood. Well, yeah. I mean that there's a lot of idiots that'll be like, well, why are people moving here? You're moving to where they're leaving from. That's why. you know, the same reason that the same thing that you're taking advantage of, they can take advantage of, right? So they can go there, do 2 years, come back and retire, and not have to work again for 10 years if the situation holds. You know what I mean? They can come back with enough money to bond ladder, and those bonds, the maximum is 30 years. You know, we say 10 years to manage expectations because you might get a 10-year bond and a 30-year bond because you got to get six of them, right? There's no way to know what's going to happen with the bond before it comes out. So we say 10 years is a matter of managing expectations. I don't think we have any bond ladders that have less than like 15 years aggregate on them. So, if you could go to Spain for 2 years and come back with enough money to essentially max out, your 401k, and then early retire and be good for the next, you know, 10 to 20, even 30 years, you would do that too. So that's how it works. Any questions on that? Any questions on any of that? All right, it's been about an hour. Actually, it's been an hour and almost 10 minutes. So, if you guys have no other questions, I think I will wrap it for today. Like I said, I'm going to be here Monday through Friday around this time. And we'll be doing that stuff in the mornings. Well, in my mornings, or they're your late nights, Monday through Friday. And then we're going to kind of move away from this live Q&A type situation, and we're going to get into kind of having like a show format set up. And so, you may not be able to interact with me soon the way that you're interacting with me now. We'll have something going on, but it might not be live. It might be something that we upload, and the new one might upload or premiere. I think we can upload it in advance, and then it premieres when we tell it to. But the new one might premiere at this time, but it may end up being like an uploaded, pre-recorded situation. So this very well might be the last week that you guys can really have some direct access to me like this. So ask your questions now. All right. Throw a 1 in the chat if you need me to hold on, or just press enter for whatever it is that you're writing, and then I'll give you time to finish writing it. If not, then it looks like there are no questions, and I will call it for today. All right, looks like we're all good. Thanks for hanging out, Freedom Family, and I will talk to you next time.